Thank you for joining me here at the American News Network with Chris Sanders, and I'm going to talk about the War Powers Act that was instituted and brought on the floor just the other day by no other than our great Senator Rand Paul. And what was happening in the United States, you got to understand, we've always had wars, but they were basically given that delegation by Congress. It says so, Article 1, Section 8, and I'll be going over the Constitution in detail later on. But what we want to go over today is this. See, we had presidents that were getting out of control, okay, from basically World War I and on. Don't forget, Korea was a police action. So is the Ukraine to Putin. But these police actions are full-on out wars, aren't they? And then we didn't know this, but then even John F. Kennedy went in closet and bombed Cambodia and Laos, Cambodia, and tried to keep that secret. John F. Kennedy then wanted to originally supply munitions and stuff to Vietnam, and then later, before we could blink, we were what? In the Vietnam War. And so we've seen U.S. presidents invade Asia again and again, from Korea to the Philippines to Vietnam to Laos, Cambodia to Japan. And so in 1973, 50 years ago on November the 7th, 1973, this War Powers Act came into control, and we had to get our military-industrial complex under control, and this was one way in which we did it. And the way in which they handled out-of-control presidents was simply by using the Constitution against them. So what we're going to go over today is Article 1, Section 8 right here, and it's something that I want all the so-called congressmen and senators out there to read, because in it says, to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, to make rules concerning captures on land and water. That's Congress shall have the power to do these things. So we'll go over it in great detail, like I said, but there's a lot of other news and there's a lot of cover-up going on. And something I want to bring up again more than anything is what China is doing in outer space. See, they have a claw satellite that can move our satellites, a clone satellite that can clone our satellites, where we think it's our satellite, but it's theirs, and a bomb, and basically they're making it to where they're short-circuiting our after thrusters, to where we think that, oh, the satellites just died, but it's not. China is taking this seriously. They've put over 38,000 CubeSats out into outer space. These are like microwave ovens with an artificial intelligence behind it, and it's just to zap our brains and kill us. So it's not a war that we've even considered. They've 3D mapped our entire country. So this country's planning not only vaccines, they're, in bed, they've bought out every single politician of the world, but they're doing a whole bunch of things that are not there for you and I. So I'm going to read this real quick, because we've had presidents get out of control. Section 8. Article 1. The Congress shall have power to lay and collect taxes, duties, impose and excises, and to pay debts, and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. We'll stop right there. Think of everybody in a tent, and think of our open borders and how Congress is failing us right here. There's a supremacy clause. Everybody in Congress, you're guilty for not helping us with the border, because we can't have a common defense or general welfare with an open border, you morons. And all duties imposed and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. To borrow money on the credit of the United States. To regulate commerce with foreign nations and among several states with the Indian tribes. To establish a uniform rule of naturalization and uniform laws on the subject of bankruptcy. Well, there you go. Wait, a uniform rule on naturalization. How do you do that with an open border? You are in violation all the way up and down here, Congress, of Article 1, Section 8. No border? Well, what's the uniform rule of naturalization then? You have a job to do to us, and you're not doing it. I suggest you do, or fire yourselves tomorrow. And uniform laws with the subject of bankruptcies throughout the United States. To coin money. You see, this is before you gave it to the Federal Reserve, when we had a president that stroked that you were able to take advantage of, all the way back to Woodrow Wilson. Okay, so this goes to coin money, regulate the value thereof and foreign coin, and to fix a standard of weights and measures, to provide for the punishment of counterfeiting in the securities and current coin of the United States, to establish post offices and post roads, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing the limited times to authors and inventors who and the exclusive rights to the respective writings and discoveries. Right there, you're in violation because you let China steal all of our inventions, not just ours. Every Japanese man, Taiwan man, German man, Italian man, doesn't matter where you come from, China's going to steal it. Am I right or am I wrong here? I'm pointing out the communism dictator that's bought out every world leader of the world, and I think we all know who the person is I'm talking about. One of my antichrist candidates, I would say, because he doesn't allow any kind of faith in his country. Okay, inventors, the exclusive right with their respective writings and discoveries. Congress, you're in violation of that as well. To constitute tribunals inferior to the Supreme Court, to define and punish piracies and felonies committed on high seas and offenses against the law of nations, to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules concerning captures on land and water, and to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for longer than a term of 2 years. Reason why I say this is the Biden administration has stretched out upon that 2-year blanket of time, and his time into the 3 years has been nothing but chaos, destruction, and to me looking like a dog running away with his tail between his legs while he gifts the Taliban $85 billion in 20 years worth of presidential work and contribution for Big Pharma. What do you mean, Big Pharma, Chris? Well, what I mean is our whole reason for being there was for growing opium for just Big Pharma. Yeah. Same people that supposedly want to cure us from all these things, they're going to offer us free cures. Well, wouldn't that methodology put them out of business? Grow up. Understand that the Guyana punch has been laid in front of you, and it's up to you to make the decision on if you want to drink it. It's been there before. I'm going to go on to some things here. But I think that the wool's being pulled over our eyes. China's got something new, and they want to spread it worldwide. Understand when Wuhan went on. Do you understand that they bulldozed everybody into Wuhan, and they said, hey, you can fly anywhere you want to but China. Go to the United States, Italy. You just can't fly in China. See, they were spreading biological terrorism, and they're doing it again. What you see behind me is a new Chinese policy that started yesterday where you can go to China now visa-free. You don't need a passport. You can just fly there and go there tomorrow. So a lot of people from Spain are taking advantage of this. Now, to me, this stinks of the same Wuhan theory that I just spoke about. You got to put 2 and 2 together here. I just did a story the other day on how they have a organ donation thing, and everybody that's Asian, we're like, that ain't no donation program. You don't have a choice in China. Xi Jinping is going to be looked at one day worse than Hitler. That's just my opinion of it, but understand he's teamed up in good ways, and this War Powers Act is coming to us, and now we have at least one senator that's put this on the House. And Cousin Bernie out there has followed in suit, but we have very few senators that do not want to regulate Jackwagon Joe because they're all vested criminals in this, in my opinion. So we're going to hear from Senator Rand Paul as he tries to defend our children. The main objective is to get them out of Syria. He's tried this before, but in various other areas. And so this is Congress flexing its muscle on the War Powers Act, and thank God we have Senator Rand Paul that can somehow defend us from what they're doing. Now, here we go.
I rise today to invoke the War Powers Act. The War Powers Act requires that upon a request from a member of the Senate or a member of Congress, that there will be a vote on whether or not troops should be put into harm's way or into a conflict without the approval of this body. Our founding fathers felt very clearly on this, that we should not go to war without a vote of the legislature. They wanted to make sure that the executive or the president was prohibited from going to war without the authority of the legislature. We've drifted away from that. It really hasn't been a valid declaration of war since World War II. We have at times taken votes to authorize the use of military force. They call them an AUMF. We did when we went into the Iraq War, so we did the voting properly. It was still a disastrous mistake to go there. But we never have voted on being in Syria. We never have voted on having troops in the middle of the Syrian civil war in which hundreds of thousands of people have died, millions of people have been displaced. And we owe it to the soldiers that are in Syria, the U.S. soldiers, the young men and women in Syria, to have a debate and have a vote. Now, the Senate doesn't want to do this. They're only doing this under duress because I am forcing them to vote on this issue. I have the power because it's called a privilege vote. They can't deny me this vote or this debate. This will put the Senate on record. Are you for having troops in Syria? If so, why? What are they doing in Syria? I fear that they are merely a tripwire to a greater war or to a tragedy should a terrorist attack occur. They have become the target for the Iranian proxies. Will we ever learn? As the fire of war spreads across the Middle East, the Biden administration sends aircraft carrier strike groups into the region without a debate of Congress. About whether the United States should be further enmeshed in these regions' conflicts, or will there be a debate at all? For the past 2 decades, the wisdom of Washington foreign policy, the establishment, has embroiled our country in one war after another, impervious to the catastrophic consequences resulting from this adventurism. Some 7,000 U.S. service members lost their lives in post-9/11 conflicts. Tens of thousands more live with missing limbs, burn scars, or are confined to wheelchairs, to say nothing of the mental wounds of war.
I'm all glad that our U.S. service members went and defended Big Pharma out there in Afghanistan, aren't you? We really accomplished a ton of humanity for the world, in my opinion, didn't we? Well, I think the only people that prospered on that was SmithKline, Bayer, Big Pharma. Made us look like jerks. And this is the only tactic we have to fight an out-of-control system here. I want you to think about the Vietnam War. I want you to think about Nixon. I want you to think about bombing Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, all these places when we had an out-of-control president. And it wasn't until November the 7th, 1973, that the War Powers Act was enacted. And now we only have just a few people saying in Congress, can you please stop the military-industrial complex? Can you please stop getting involved in religious wars? Well, what do you mean by that? Well, people ask me what I think about our new Speaker of the House, and I think that he is putting our faith over law, and that's prohibited. It says here that Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion. This is the very first words in the amendments. Because of what? Because of what we're doing now. So when we made amendments, the very first words we made were directly relating to this war in Israel. What do you mean by that, Chris? Well, understand, if you read the book of Judges 13:3, you see there's the Gazahites in there and the Philistines, and they're fighting the Jews. And this is even, 2,663 years ago. Even when Jesus was walking the grounds, this was a 600 to 640-year-old battle. And the Philistines and the Gazahites, they always challenge the Jews when they turn from God. It even says it in the Bible. So the reason why the people of Gaza have Gaza is because, read the Bible, that's been theirs for 2,700 years. So we have to dive into not just what people say, but if you're a Christian, read the book and understand these people have been at war for so long. And don't you think our founding fathers saw that? Of course they did, because this was a 2,300-year-old war back then. And so when we made the amendments, we realized that we had Congress and these people were getting so out of control that when we started making amendments, the first sentence was that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So no matter what side we fight over there in Israel, we're either fighting Israel, Judaism, half of them follow Judaism, half of them are just kosher, or we're supporting Islam. And to me, and then that is a faith that hasn't separated church versus state. Okay, but regardless, we are fighting something that is specifically prohibited for us to involve ourselves in. And if we just put ourselves first, and remember in Article 1, Section 8, you're supposed to take care of the general welfare here. That was also in the preamble of the very opening title of the Constitution of the United States. It's about our general welfare. It says, we the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, and promote the general welfare. None of those things can be done with an open border. And right now, I'm asking that all of our service members return home to fight another battle that we're fighting. And you can see it left and right. Finally, our crippled governor in the state of Texas has woken up. He's as woke as they come. Well, what we got was Beto Beta or wheelchaired Abbott. Abbott, you better get the lead out, because you're making a 6-2 violation. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. You must follow it, sir. We do know we have a rhino and a dino out there in New Mexico and Arizona. I don't have to tell you about Gavin Newsom and who he serves, do I? He serves Xi Jinping. And I'll tell you something, I love President Trump, who is my orange man good with watermelon balls, but the only thing I do not agree with him on is that he likes that guy. I have a problem with that. That's just my own personal spin. I don't like that guy at all. I don't like anybody that's a dictator. I think that he changes the world for the people of China to where they're not even free. And I think that he's doing stuff with our politicians that haunt the world and their crimes against humanity. And I think that it's ridiculous that America even considers how we're dirty when we produce the cleanest energy in the United States. I'd like to add that we need to go on natural gas and biodiesel, hemp biodiesel, so that we can say, basically, adios to that war over there that has nothing to do with us. See, we have the answer. You might say, well, what's your answer for this, Chris? We got to rely on the Arabs. We have to rely on the Arabs because the king was so smart, of the king of Arabia. He read our EPA laws. He came over here. He's systematically been buying out all of our refineries. And as such, I have to produce oil and gas here and ship it there. And now it's coming back to us through Russian super tankers. I got a problem with that. See, overnight they could even poison it. And who's to say? Gasoline, to me, I think it's poison as it is. See, Greta Thunberg, all these kids, you want to talk about being good for the environment? You try running a gasoline vehicle in a house and see how long it'll take you to die. You can do the same thing with natural gas, which is what God has given the United States of America. And we can be energy independent and not rely on the Arabs and OPEC. And for the diesel fuel, like I said, diesels run on vegetable oil, and we're doing 800 to 1,200 gallons per acre on industrial hemp. So America has what it takes. And why does Senator Rand Paul know that? Well, because Kentucky has been ranking high in teaching the world about the benefits. You could ask people like Joe Hickey out there in Gincana and Italo, but they've led the United States, proving how that they have a new energy and a way in which they can promote the diesel fuels in America and do it 95% cleaner than using petroleum chemicals. And that's coming from somebody that's in the oil and gas industry. But again, the impact of gas. is almost like the impact of Gaza. Right now, they're saying 1 out of 200 people have died that have been involved in this Gaza catastrophe, and I just want us to somehow get out of it in every single way possible. Israel ramps up the bombing in Khan Yunis, and Israel warns that they're going to continue it as the Ayatollah. And this is for you, Ben. He warns you of an uncontrollable explosion as he goes and meets Vladimir Putin. So we have the president of Iran spending time after he makes a threat to Israel. And then just a couple hours ago, we had Benjamin Netanyahu calling up Iran and Putin saying, hey, why are you guys getting so chummy? Well, the reason is because maybe you're flooding people like rats and maybe you're killing children. Again, the United States cannot take sides in this, nor can we take sides in haphazard bombing, because nobody wants to kill a child. And if you do, do not watch my show. I am not selling you commercials here, but I want to protect everybody and everybody's children and everybody's babies. But we can't be the architects of destruction, and that's what we are here. And what do you mean by that, Chris? Well, you can't go giving $16 billion to one side, $100 million to the other side. You can't fund both sides. And by funding both sides, the architect of evil, Jack Wagon Joe, knows exactly what he's doing. And so that's why you have Senator Rand Paul enacting the War Powers Act. We need all the other senators to get behind Senator Rand Paul immediately and establish this to take the helm away from Jack Wagon Joe, who wants to pretend that he's commander-in-chief. And so help me God, it's the Manchurian candidate, Barack Hussein Obama. I want you to understand about that name, Barack Hussein. It means like the thunder that comes from the evil one. If you read the ancient Aramaic of who the Antichrist is, Barack Hussein is in the wording of what was said. No kidding. So, read it in Aramaic when it describes the Antichrist. Tell me that Jack Wagon Joe, who can't even wipe his doty hole, is somehow the architect of this destruction. No, I think it's actually perversion and Big Mike. The thing that also about Epstein Island, many of you don't know, is that James Biden, the brother of Joe Biden, owns the island right next door. So how are we not calling it Jack Wagon Joe Six Flags? That's just my opinion. So Israel ramps up the bombing, and as they do, I want you to see something here. Iran makes a threat. He makes a threat, but as he makes the threat, then he immediately goes and hits Vladdy P. You see, proof is in the pudding. People say, well, what do you mean? Can you prove that the president of Iran has met up with Putin? Yeah, well, there we go. The president of Iran is planning a big move against Israel. And this is, as he says to Ben, expect a big kaboom. With all the hate and with all the bombs today, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. If you want to live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword in Israel. Love creates love, and hate creates hate. And what you see behind me is nothing but hate, created by an out-of-control government and a whole bunch of old, corrupt politicians in the United States of America. They're not there for you. They're not there for me. They're there to destroy the world. And how then could Islam be meeting up with Putin? What is their spin on it? And I'm going to tell you what it is. Many of you don't know. And our media covers it up, and you deserve to know the truth. So this is actually Putin talking. Listen to this. But since we can't understand, he says their prime target is the course. Hold on, I'm going to back it up here so that you can actually hear this guy. And he condemns the Church of England in his State of the Nation speech in Moscow. He says their prime target of the curse the younger people and our young generation. And here again, they lie constantly. They distort historical facts. They constantly attack our culture, the Russian Orthodox Church and other traditional religion organizations, look at what they do with their own people, the destruction of their notion of a family. Cultural and national identity, perversion, abuse of children, even pedophilia are declared the norm of life. I'd like to say to them, look at the Holy Scripture, the holy books of all the other world religions. It's said there, including the fact that a family is the union of a man and a woman. Okay? So, but even those sacred texts are being reviewed now. As it became known, the Anglican Church, for example, plans at this point to consider the idea of a gender-neutral God. What can I say? May God forgive them. They know not what they do. Okay, so a lot of you don't know this, but this trans agenda, just like I said, has united the Christian Orthodox world and the Muslim world. And until we clean our house and stop acting like a bunch of weirdos, we're going to be treated like a bunch of weirdos. And the petrodollar, it says on that petrodollar, I will remind you in God we trust. So why are you making us out to be a bunch of liars? So the problem is with technology is when I see Iran and Russia teaming up, and when I see the United States and all of its pride with Israel, we've lied. We've created so much hate, and hate creates hate. And with the technology that's out there today, I don't think that we can stop what's coming. Another thing is that if we're a Christian nation, why aren't we supporting Armenia? If you go to Glendale, Pasadena, it's all Armenian. They pay more in taxes. We should be helping their people out, and we're completely not. That just doesn't add up. Even the people that have left Iran pay a lot in taxes, and they'll tell you about what you're looking at behind me here. Our sultans, now this is the Palestinian chief meeting with the Iranian chief, and they're also meeting with Putin. Don't think that the Palestinians don't have big guns that are going to help them out here. And what's going on as of today and yesterday is that the IDF in Israel's flooding them out. Well, isn't that what you do to rats? See, we felt such compassion for the Jews in World War II and what was going on because it looked like this, that we went over there and we saved you, a Christian nation. Great Britain, the United States, we saw what Hitler was doing to the Jews, and we saved you and we took you back, and then we gave you Israel. And so CBN, which was the 700 Club, and Pat Robertson, they were reporting how that you guys in Israel were spitting on Christians, the very people that gave you back your home. You know, you're so thick-skulled you don't even know who brought back the remnant. And if that's not proof that Jesus is the Christ, then, well, the result is the war that you see behind me. Why do you think Moses wandered for 40 years in the desert and never saw the Holy Land? He created the same situation that he tried to leave with the Pharaoh, saying that only he could talk to God. Remember that Jesus said, when you want to talk to God, you go into that private place and you talk to your Father in heaven, and everything that you say in secret, he will hear you. And that's my message for the day. Know that your prayers are heard, even from where you are. God bless you and amen.